Hustleburg. This podcast is all about small business in St. Petersburg, Florida, how the business owners got started, how they built their business, and how they serve our community. I'm Brett Bittner, and I'm the host of Hustleburg, and I started Beyond Your Side Hustle, a marketing firm where we help budding entrepreneurs go beyond their side hustles and ditch their 9-to-5s. As the founder of a small business here in St. Pete myself, I love meeting and talking with fellow small business owners. Lucky for you, I also like to record those conversations for you to listen to. If you find anything of value in this episode, I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast because there are probably more nuggets in other episodes, both past and upcoming. It would also be great if you rate and review the episode to let us know what you got out of the conversation. If you have a question about marketing, building your brand, or operating your small business that you'd like to have answered on a Q&A episode, please visit beyondyoursidehustle.com/podcast question to submit it. Recently, I had the good fortune of sitting down with two of the best business website designers that I know, my friends Brian and Teresa Ott from A Fearless Venture. Instead of the usual Q&A, I thought it would be a lot better to bring in somebody who really knows their stuff to answer your website questions. Enjoy! So let's say that we are the kind of person who is coming to the end of the business card and Facebook page as our business presence online, and we're looking to have a website that at least gives people a landing place to find out more about us. What are the things that we need to be looking for when we're making that decision, and what our next steps are?
The first thing is the thing that nobody wants to think about, and it's budget. And when you hear budget, you think, oh my God, they're going to take all my money, or oh my God, I don't have enough, or whatever. And some of that stuff might be true, but you need to think about budget, because the way that our experience tells us this works is you have a sufficient enough budget to hire somebody that knows what they're doing, or you don't. Like, I'm not saying you have to hire somebody that costs $10,000, but there may be some in-between options out there, but really you may think about doing it yourself if you don't have a budget, or you may think about, okay, what's my budget? I need to pay somebody and I need to find somebody.
Now let's say we go with the DIY. We're going to learn all we can about Squarespace or Wix or WordPress, or we're just going to code HTML and we're going to figure it all out ourselves. Okay, we're going to learn all of that in addition to our daily grind. What are some of the things we need to be looking for as a DIY that we may not be considering with that as an avenue?
Okay, I'm gonna back up and I'm gonna say no, you're not, because well, if it's a hobby and you're just messing around, knock yourself out. That's actually how I got into it, like 20 plus years ago. But if you have a business that is profitable, or that you need to be profitable, you don't need to be messing around with that stuff. But at the same time, like I mentioned before, if you don't have the budget and you are looking at like a low budget, you are way better off DIYing. So I would suggest a couple of options for that. Really, again, unless you have a lot of time, I wouldn't suggest trying to learn anything and everything. Just keep it simple. I think one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they try to build their own website is kind of overcompensating. You see like the guys with the big Jeep and the giant tires, and you're like, he's, midlife crisis or whatever. But really, you need to keep it simple for a couple of reasons. It looks more professional and it's easier to maintain. So whatever the thing is, don't go crazy. Keep it simple. But you mentioned Squarespace. That is a good option, especially if you need to do e-commerce. It's kind of a walled garden or a closed environment. You can, if you later decide you want to do something different, you can export posts and export pages and put them into a new site. We advocate for WordPress quite a bit because there's just a whole gamut of situations that you can get in. It's very adaptable, all the way from completely free to very elaborate websites. You can always find help, whether it's DIY help or professional help, or you build your site yourself, and then a couple or 3 years down the road, once your budget is cool and you're making money, then you hire somebody to help you. WordPress is great for that. But what a lot of people don't know is you can start on free WordPress, WordPress.com, and there are some limitations. I don't know how deep we want to get into that, but if you're focused on your business, that's a fine place to start. You don't have to worry about security. It's cheap. It's free, but you don't want to do free because you want your domain name on it, and they'll take a little bit of money to do that. But if you decide to do something more elaborate later on, just like with Squarespace, you can export all of your posts and your content and bring it into another site. So Wix is another option, but I'm not really all that familiar with it. I've taken people out of it because they're not happy.
I've done a lot of, I've looked at a lot of Wix sites, and Wix is horrible, and they've got people don't like Wix.
So when it comes to Squarespace and Wix, those are things that people aren't going to have, at least the free version. It's not going to be joeswebsite.com. It's going to be joeswebsite.wix or joeswebsite.squarespace.com.
Right. I would not do that at all. If you're looking for absolutely free, you are honestly better off sticking with the Facebook page. If you've outgrown the Facebook page, you need to be able to at least spend a little bit of money. So, and
we're not talking about a lot of money here.
No. Really
so we're talking $12 to $15 for a domain name, using the self-hosted options with WordPress.com and some of those where you actually get to put in your URL and it directs to your site.
Well, that is one option, but the other option that I mentioned, I said free WordPress at WordPress.com, so you can make the free website, but it's, as you said, it's joesgarage.wordpress.com. Unless you pay them a little bit of money. Last I checked, which I'm a little off, it's been a while, I think it was $36 a year or whatever. You can map your domain name or put your domain name on it. So it is joesgarage.com, period. And that works just fine. There's actually a couple of reasons that I wouldn't recommend, if budget and time are an issue, to jump into self-hosted.
So what do you mean by self-hosted? Because that may not be something that a lot of people that are just getting into this are going to know.
That's a good question. So WordPress is software that you can blog with it, but you can also make a full website, or ideally you're having a website and a blog, because blogs, help drive traffic and everything to your website.
Content is definitely king around here.
All right, cool. So that software can live at your web host that you arrange hosting with. We use Lightning Base. Some people use other hosting companies. I'm not going to mention popular ones because most of them I don't like. Or that very same software can be used and run on a server that somebody else deals with. And this is great when it comes to time and security. There's a lot about websites that you don't really realize. Like, it doesn't matter how small you are. People are trying to hack it all the time. It's ridiculous. And nobody that has better things to do needs to worry about that stuff. So at WordPress.com, they take care of it. So the difference between self-hosted and WordPress.com is kind of the thing where you can buy or you rent. Somebody else maintains the house. Your garbage disposal goes out, no big deal. That's kind of like WordPress.com. Self-hosted, you have a lot more freedom, but you also have a lot more responsibility, and you may not really be ready for it.
So one of the things that's really been a big issue that I've noticed lately with websites, probably in the last 2 to 3 years, it's almost essential that you have an SSL certificate.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Most people actually don't need it, but it makes people, it does say this website is they have verified who they are. So when you put in your information, whether it's just a contact form or a credit card form, that kind of thing, you know that it's not being intercepted. It is going where it is intended to go. And these days, even if you don't do any e-commerce, it's super important to have that an SSL, because Otherwise, the browser is throwing up warnings, even if you're not doing anything secure, even if you don't have a contact form. Sorry.
Even if it's just a homepage for a car wash and there's no e-commerce, nothing, it'll throw up a warning if you don't have an SSL certificate. And people will leave.
Yep. It's a confidence thing. And most legitimate web hosts that are not the mass market hosts, they will give you or dovetail with some of the free SSL certificates, so you don't need to pay extra. The host I'm not going to mention, if you go search for hosting, it's the most popular one ever. We're not going to even mention the name.
But if you do search for hosting and this is the name you see all the time, don't get it.
But they'll charge you extra, and the SSL doesn't work very well. So it's and it's actually the one that you can get into for what looks like $3 a month, but there's a lot of gotchas beyond that. So
it's kind of like GoDaddy and the domain registration. It seems like it's very cheap, and then there's this, that, and the other that they're going to add on to it.
That's another point too. Domain registration and hosting. Most people, when they start out, they register their domain and they host at the same place. We recommend that you register your domain at one place and you host at another.
Okay, why is that?
Because if something happens to your host or your domain, register one or the other, you still got the other and you're okay. But if you're with GoDaddy and you've got both of them there and something happens, you get locked out of your account, somebody hacks your account, whatever, you're completely locked out.
And we totally understand people that don't want to hassle and have things in two separate places. But I will say that the beauty of having your domain registration with a separate registrar and then you're hosting over here is that if things start to go south with your website, especially if you did pick a host that is not super awesome, you can build a website somewhere else and then go to your registrar and say, okay, now go get my website over here instead of this other place. And
my website doesn't live here anymore. It lives over here.
No big deal. So it's an extra step. And we have a host that we like and we recommend, and we feel less bad about people that say, no, I want to keep it simple. I want to keep my domain name there as well. But still, I recommend you.
We love our host. We know him personally. We still don't keep our domains with him. We keep them someplace.
In the event that people missed it earlier, you host with?
Lightning Base.
Lightning Base, okay.
We didn't mention it. We didn't know we were supposed to pimp our stuff.
Oh, that's okay. That's totally fine.
Nobody's heard of them, but they're great.
So we have our domain. We've decided that we are going to either use one of these hosts or we're going to self-host it through a hosting provider. Now what?
Okay, we're going to assume WordPress.
Okay.
So you have two different scenarios. If you self-host, you can pretty much do anything, and that is another reason I like if you're new and you're a business and you're doing something else besides making your website your whole entire life, WordPress.com. But you have this thing called theme, which is essentially templates. It controls how your website is going to look and the design, and that's what I was referring to earlier when I said keep it simple. Primarily that's going to be theme, so you have to choose theme and then you have to figure out how WordPress works. So that's a thing too if you're new to it. Another thing that we think is so great for people new to WordPress, it's primarily for the self-hosted people, but there's a lot of overlap that I think would probably be valuable for WordPress.com people, because again, it's the same software. We use, recommend, and provide for our clients something called WP 101, and it's great even if you don't really want to take the time to learn everything there is to know about WordPress, because what it is this whole library of videos, and all of them are super short. They're between like 2.5 to 6 minutes ish. On every aspect that you need to know of about WordPress, and literally 101. So from start to finish, you can watch those things, and they're very short, and learn what you need to know so that you don't get mixed up, or you feel confident in maintaining your site, or building your site even. Or if you just need to dive in and do a thing and get it done, you can find the video on that topic, and boom. watch that in 3 minutes, watch it over and over again if you have to, and learn how to do it. So it's not specific to your theme, so it might be a little tiny bit different. We probably shouldn't dive into plugins. I'll just mention they're little separate add-ons, often free, sometimes paid, that can do little jobs. So WP 101 covers a couple of the common ones. Everyone's site's a little bit different, but still, WP 101 is a great first step if you have to maintain or take care of your site or even build it to start with. And they have an all-access pass that's like, I think it's on sale. Yeah, it's cheaper. It's more than that, but they have a sale going on right now, so it's super cheap. But for an entire year.
But it gives you basically step by step, starting out the rudimentary, how to set up your theme, how to do all of that, go through it, so you can build a relatively simple website.
Yep.
Just by looking at that without falling into too many pitfalls.
Yep.
So we've got our website up. We've been through WP 101 and we've committed to WordPress. And part of, we talked about content being king. Why does that help a business person who just wants to have a landing page or a landing place on the internet for people to find them?
Well, that kind of falls into my bailiwick, which is search engine optimization. If you have the best website in the world for Joe's Garage, but nobody goes there and nobody can find it, it doesn't do any good. And the way people find you is through Google. And the way people find you through Google is because you have content out there that Google has crawled and indexed and researched. And if you've got good authoritative content on things that people are searching for, they'll come to your site. If Joe's Garage has got the best article ever on automatic transmission maintenance, and then people start searching for automatic transmissions, it's going to start coming up, and then you'll get traffic to joesgarage.com, and then, that'll drive business. It's a slow, painstaking process for search engine optimization, but that's how you get people to come to your site. You have to have good, solid content. You have to have expertise in it. You got to be authoritative, and write really good content in things that people are interested in.
So even if you're a local business, I think the SEO is still important. If people know you and they know your domain name and they know to go straight to you, maybe you don't need SEO. But most of the time, people aren't sure of your domain name. They search, you better come up. Or they search auto repair near me or whatever the thing is. And if you have created your pages well, you've paid attention to SEO and that kind of thing, you will come up. So even if you are primarily known in your community and primarily a community business, and it's not like you have an extra bunch of things that you have to do. It's more about the way that you create your site, the way that you write your content, and the way that you write your headlines. It's not extra, it's just a method that you need to keep in mind as you build.
And so this is something that you should be looking at from an ongoing perspective, not a add-on after the fact. This is something that you need to be creating as you go.
Right. You don't bolt SEO onto a site.
And there are plenty of people who will tell you that you should, and they will take quite a bit of money for doing things, but really the hard work of SEO is just the things that aren't very technical. It's about writing your content right.
Having good content and relevant. It really comes down to relevancy. If nobody searches, you could be the number one world authority on left-handed carpenters from the Middle Ages, but if nobody's searching for that, it doesn't matter.
So we've got about 2 minutes or so left. What are some of the pitfalls that you would say you want to make sure that anybody listening to this is going to want to avoid as they're getting started with their website for their business?
Don't do too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep it simple.
Exactly.
A simple one-page website is way better than downloading 55 plugins for WordPress and trying to turn it into the next Amazon website, because it ain't going to work.
Yeah, and it seems like when you get in, especially with WordPress, it's tempting because there's so much great free stuff out there. There's a lot of garbage that's free too. It will mess up your site. It will slow your site. It will make it unusable. And It goes back to that overcompensating thing. If you're confident in what you're doing with your business, you need to just put your content out there, have some great images, good information that shows people where you are, what you're doing. You don't need a Facebook widget that will slow your site down and take people away over to Facebook. You don't need social share buttons or that kind of thing. So keep it simple, honestly.
So if people are looking to find out more about the topics that we talked about, you guys actually do that. You do share a great bit of content, whether it's through your Facebook page or fearlessventure.com. Tell people where they can find you to learn more about some of the things that we talked about today.
Well, fearlessventure.com, as you mentioned,
and then also a Fearless Venture on Facebook.
On Facebook, and then our other profiles are Instagram, and they're personal. You can follow us, but it's not usually business related unless the random business post. So that's the best way.
You did it. You've just listened to Hustleburg. To thank you for listening, I have a free guide to help you get started marketing your business online, aptly named our Getting Started Guide, available at beyondyoursidehustle.com/gettheguide. See how to begin with the first 3 things you should be doing for your business online. Speaking of businesses, if you're a small business owner in St. Pete and you'd like to be a guest on an episode of the podcast, let us know at beyondyoursidehustle.com/podcastguest. If you got something of value from this podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcast player. This is something small you can do to help us shine the spotlight on all the great businesses St. Pete has to offer. The music in this episode is Defining Your Dreams by my friend Rhymer Educator. On May 28th, he released a mixtape entitled Quentin Quarantino about loneliness during the COVID-19 pandemic, and I encourage you to check it out on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen to great music. Thanks so much for listening, and we look forward to sharing with you how we do business in the Burg.